It's a very conflicting and confusing story. There's a legal catch-22. The law says that remains cannot be dropped or scattered over private property without the owner's permission. And so when Mr. Elkin put those ashes on his own property, he was attempting, as they say, to comply with the law. The remains had to be left on top of the ground, though, because another law says that if the remains are covered with dirt, the land would then be classified as a cemetery, which would be regulated by still another set of rules and permits here in this state. Now, the latest development in this story came just before airtime tonight with the announcement of a very big lawsuit filed on behalf of a grieving family. Channel 7's Cheryl Jennings is back with us in the studio right now. She's just back from attorney Melvin Belli's office here in San Francisco, where he talked about the price a family wants for the outrage they feel for the way a loved one's remains have been handled. And with details, here you are.
It is a big lawsuit, Van. Belli announced late today that his office has filed a lawsuit against the Neptune Crematorium Society for $2 million in punitive damages and $500,000 in general damages. Now, Belli is representing Kay Thorson of San Francisco, whose mother died just May 29th. Belli told Mrs. Thorson told Belli that her mother's ashes would be scattered over the High Sierra by plane. That was her mother's request because her father's ashes were also scattered over the Sierra, but that didn't happen.
Instead of flying them over the oceans or over the Sierras, they got a truck with all the ashes mingled. Now, you might say, what the hell, dust to dust and all the rest of that. But that's not for us to say once we make a contract with somebody that we're going to treat the corpse in a certain manner. That's the subject of the contract, and they lied, they deceived these people, and these people are furious.
That they are indeed. Belli also says the Neptune Society knew all along about the practice of scattering those ashes by hand on land instead of by plane. I talked to the director of the Neptune Society just a few minutes ago, Richard John Gordon, and he said the society did not know anything at all about the practice. He said the society feels that the lawsuit is wrong. He said there was no intent to defraud anyone.
Well, they still don't know how many bodies or remains of bodies were put on that property.
Well, those are estimates, I believe, by the neighbors. That's what they were saying.
Yeah, Elkin says that it's far into 9,000, as some people have said up to 10,000 bodies.
And he did do work for about 40 crematoriums, so we have no way of knowing that at this point.
Right, so there could be a lot more people I'm getting to in lawsuits like this.
Yes, yes. Belli predicts that this thing is just going to go on and on. In fact, he says it could be happening all across the country.
Ooh. Okay.
In a small plot of land in Amador County, the state may be about to move against B.J. Elkins tonight, to say nothing of Melvin Belli. Cheryl Jennings is here with that part of the story.
Okay, Belli has charged the Neptune Society with malice, fraud, and callousness, and then announced that he has filed a $2.5 million lawsuit against the Neptune Society. Belli says the Neptune Society knew all along that the pilot hired by them to scatter ashes by plane over Lake Tahoe was not doing that. Well, tonight, the director of the Neptune Society angrily denies that charge.
Why would we know something like this is going on and condone it? When we're paying somebody to give a service to do service other than that, that doesn't make sense.
Richard John Gordon says there has never been any intent to defraud anybody who is contracted for services with the Neptune Crematorium Society. But San Francisco attorney Mel Belli tells a different tale. He's representing a woman named Kay Thorson, who says that she was promised by the Neptune Society that her mother's ashes would be scattered by plane over land in Lake Tahoe. But those ashes were scattered by hand by the pilot on his property in Amador County, possibly from a Jeep or a truck or a wheelbarrow. And that's something which only adds to the grief Mrs. Thorson is going through. Belli says her emotions are still raw. Her mother just died 3 weeks ago. And now she and thousands of others are learning that the last wishes of their loved ones were not carried out by the Neptune Society and other crematoriums which hired that pilot.
They lied, they deceived these people, and these people are furious.
B.J. Elkin, the pilot who was hired by some 40 to 50 crematoriums, owns this plane, which has apparently been modified with a special chute and hatch to scatter ashes. Elkin will not appear on camera, but he did call KGO Radio early this morning and denied that he's done anything wrong, legally or morally.
On the permit itself, it says that description sufficient to identify final place and county of disposition. Okay, if this says mountains, how do you identify the place? If this says 6 miles from volcano, where is 6 miles from volcano? Now, I've inked that out, and I have put Elkin property. That a person can say, hey, my dad is right there.
Well, that kind of reasoning by Jack Elkin does not soothe the feelings of people who believe that they have been deceived by him and by the various crematoriums. We've also learned tonight that Elkin's land has now been purchased by the Neptune Society, which says that it's posted guards there late today, which means reporters are not going to be allowed on the property anymore either. And eventually the Society plans to turn that land into a park.
I'm still confused by what Elkin says. When did he alter those papers? After the agreements were made with individuals or before? Obviously after.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, there'll be more on this, obviously, in the next
Much,
few
much
days.
more to come.
Thank you, Cheryl. Of the misplaced remains tonight, the suit against B.J. Elkins and the Neptune Society alleges fraud because the remains of 9,000 people were left in ash piles on Elkins' property, not scattered from a plane as contracted. And that's just the beginning of this story tonight, just the beginning. There are protracted battles with the state and with the funeral people.
The neighborhood got together and we all feel about the same way. We're just all outraged that this can happen in our backyards. You know, this is where our dogs go, this is where our children play, and kids camp out, and, you know, we hike through, ride through.
This is home video taken by one of Elkin's neighbors, videotape shot before we began covering the story on Monday. The neighbors say someone came and removed these huge piles of remains that you see here, some of them 4 feet deep. They're not there anymore.
If we had supposedly come up here and raked it all together, and then his workmen raked it all out without removing any, then don't you think that at this point you could maybe rake it all together and approximate the pictures? Totally impossible.
Late today, the Elkins property was placed under security guard as members of the Neptune Society arrived. They're in the process of buying the land to make a memorial park out of it. They say they brought in security guards to keep the curious away over the weekend.
Calls asking for more information on the Amador Ashes mess. Pilot J.B. Jack Elkin had agreed to speak with us this morning. Then he decided to back out. And I suspect it's findings like this that are the reasons why.
Elkin's pitch sheet to at least one Bay Area funeral home makes some interesting statements. We are experienced in having spread thousands of remains. We know what you expect of us. All our service is done with the dignity required. We respect your position. We will not be underpriced by any air service. Volume is the key to our low rates. And then there's the case of Mary Tripp, whose husband's remains were allegedly scattered at sea by Elkin. After that, Elkin approached her and many other bereaved relatives to scatter flowers over the ash scattering site at regular intervals, reportedly for $8 to $10 a drop. Elkin supplied confirmation cards of these scatterings too, but just like for the ashes themselves, only his word is his bond, and that word and bond is highly questionable.
At least 47 mortuaries, crematories, funeral homes, cemeteries, and cremation societies are wrapped up in this bizarre case, and we intend to pursue it until we have the answers to the questions that everybody is asking.
There's been confusion between the gentleman himself and the funeral homes and the connection. What is the sense that you're getting? What is the sense of feeling that you're getting from these funeral homes and mortuaries? How do they feel about this mess?
Two things. They are just astounded at the revelations that they're hearing, and they're also very concerned because their customers are calling them. No matter how the ashes were scattered, they're calling them wanting to know more and more and more, and they're finding themselves in a position because they trusted this one man that they have to explain everything, which is why we say there needs to be an improvement in the law to require that whenever these ashes are scattered, there will be a witness there.
All right, Tom, thank you.